Welcome back to the Deep Dive. This is where we take the information you share and, well, we really dig into it. Today, we're looking at something fascinating and honestly pretty surprising. The real story behind Americans holding a second passport. Most of us think dual citizenship, that's just a straightforward plus, isn't it? A perk. But the sources we've looked at, they tell a different story. They reveal a whole set of systemic challenges, even some unexpected threats.
Yeah, for this deep dive, we've gone through a detailed report focused on these threats, plus a couple of draft articles, and they all really shine a light on the hidden difficulties. So our mission today is to unpack all this, pull out the key insights, and help you understand what it actually means to navigate the world with two passports, especially when one of them is American.
And what's really compelling, I think, is how much this challenges our basic ideas about citizenship. We tend to think of it as, a right, maybe a privilege, but the material suggests it's much more complicated and sometimes quite unsettling. Okay, let's get into that. We hear all the time about people wanting a second passport. It's often seen as this, ultimate status symbol, right? A privilege. But what do our sources actually say about how hard it is for someone already inside the U.S., an American citizen, to get a second passport?
Well, the material is very direct on this. It essentially frames U.S. citizenship itself as a, quote, limited asset, something that's heavily guarded. The systems described seem to really favor birthright and legacy. So for Americans looking to get another passport, maybe through investment or other legal ways, the financial hurdle is pretty staggering. The sources mention needing to be worth at least $2 million USD, often.
$2 million? Wow.
Yeah. And it's not just about money. There's this phrase, resistance at every level. It suggests the whole process is designed to be incredibly difficult. It sort of reframes citizenship, doesn't it? Less of a right, more of a high-value commodity for the super rich.
Right. So, okay, if it's that tough for someone already in the U.S. to get a second passport, then what about people outside trying to get U.S. citizenship? That sounds like where it gets really eye-opening.
Exactly. It's significantly harder.
Yeah.
Global immigration systems, and the U.S. path specifically, they're structured, according to these sources, to prioritize certain countries, races, economic classes. The further you are from what's described as whiteness, wealth, or Western alignment, the tougher the journey gets.
Okay.
For outsiders, the numbers are just kind of mind-blowing, often needing a net worth of $10 million USD.
10 million.
Yes, and potentially facing waits of up to 30 years, just for U.S. citizenship.
30 years.
And that's before you even think about adding another one, like a Canadian passport. It really drives home this idea of citizenship as exclusive access, like a very guarded club.
That exclusivity leads us to another angle, doesn't it? These more insidious threats tied to identity. The sources talk about religion and race playing a big role in how citizenship is seen. And granted, what's the core idea there?
Yeah, this is a really critical point and quite starkly put in the sources. They present this challenging view, almost metaphorical, suggesting citizenship is often viewed implicitly through a lens of whiteness and Christianity. They even use phrases like it's something possessed by a white superior or a Jesus figure.
Wow, that's strong language.
It is. It highlights this deep-seated, almost spiritual ideal of who the real citizen is supposed to be in these systems. And as you can imagine, that creates huge systemic barriers for anyone who doesn't fit that very narrow picture.
Right.
Specifically talking about race, for Black applicants, the material flags systemic racism coded into application filters, background checks, and even merit-based selection. It's presented not as, isolated incidents, but as part of the system's design.
Caked right in.
Exactly. They face more scrutiny, denials, and delays. And even after they naturalize, the feeling is they're still viewed as outsiders. Their belonging always sort of questioned.
That is incredibly stark. Okay, let's shift to the economic side. One source uses this really powerful term, indirect enslavement. That jumped out at me. What does that actually mean for immigrants, even citizens?
Indirect enslavement. Yeah, it's a potent phrase the sources use. It describes the really harsh realities many face. Long working hours, heavy fees, years of legal uncertainty just to get in and stay.
Yeah.
And even once they have citizenship, there's still this distinction. They're often, quote, treated as inferior to those born on U.S. soil.
That's the just sullen idea, right? Citizenship by birth.
Precisely. That difference in how you got citizenship shapes how your worth is seen. Your economic contribution becomes the only measure of worth, essentially. Your value is constantly being judged. And here's a really surprising detail, almost counterintuitive. Under certain wartime conditions, the sources suggest a low-income American is still seen as superior to a wealthy foreigner.
Why is that?
Because of the backing of U.S. military strength. It means wealthy foreigners can, ironically, become potential targets in certain situations.
Right.
It points to this very specific, kind of paradoxical vulnerability.
Okay, so with all these layers, the financial barriers, the identity issues, the economic pressures, what does this mean for how actual authorities view dual nationals globally, not just in the U.S.? The sources mention envy and suspicion.
Exactly that. Other authorities, officials, they often react with envy and suspicion. They question why someone needs a second passport. It's not always seen positively like, oh, they're a global citizen. Sometimes it's more like, what advantage do they have? Or what threat could they pose?
So scrutiny.
Yes. And it can apparently even go so far as undermining their professional status in some contexts. It's this extra layer of low-grade geopolitical anxiety that comes with holding two passports.
Okay, and one last really intriguing point from the sources, this idea of threats from an international community's secret agenda, that sounds almost conspiratorial. Can you unpack that? Particularly this idea about Canadian or Mexican passports.
It is a fascinating angle. The sources propose that if your second passport happens to be from Canada or Mexico, it can carry this extra weight, this value, as part of something presumptively greater.
Meaning?
The implication is that it might be seen as representing, even symbolically, a kind of unified North and or South American continent,
Ah, okay.
like a bloc.
Sort of. And this perceived regional power, this cohesion, is what supposedly draws envy from a larger international community. So it's less about the individual and more about how their nationality fits into these big geopolitical perceptions and potential rivalries. It definitely raises questions about how global strategy can intersect with personal identity.
So wrapping up our deep dive today, it's clear, isn't it? Dual citizenship, particularly involving the U.S., is way more complicated than just having an extra travel document. Our sources show it pulls back the curtain on systemic exclusion, huge financial hurdles, really deep racial and religious biases, economic exploitation, even this kind of geopolitical suspicion. It's not the simple perk it often seems. Absolutely. These sources really hammer home how citizenship can function as this highly guarded commodity, not just a basic right. It's a mechanism for both providing access and enforcing exclusion, controlled by factors you might not even think about.
Which leaves us, and you, with a final thought to mull over. Given everything we've talked about, these systemic issues, these complex realities, how do our global ideas of belonging, worth, and loyalty actually play out in immigration and citizenship policies around the world? And what does it really mean for anyone who's pursuing or maybe just holds a second passport today? Hopefully these insights give you a new lens for thinking about global movement and identity. Maybe you'll look at a passport a little differently now.